Hello and welcome to the Luv Doc podcast with hosts Waldo Wachewski and Ophelia Brewski.
For this Luv Doc, you've brought us something pretty fascinating. It's a letter.
It is, from a reader. Let's call them DC, writing to a Luv Doc, asking for some advice.
Right, and the response from this Luv Doc, it's not what you'd expect, is it?
Not your typical relationship column answer, no, far from it.
Not at all. I mean, the core issue seems, on the surface, pretty straightforward. A dating problem, right?
Yeah.
Centered on different eating habits. But our mission here is to really unpack DC's dilemma and then explore this, well, surprisingly personal, almost philosophical direction the Luv Doc takes in the reply. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's see what DC wrote.
Okay, so DC's dating someone. It's been about 6 months. Still in that phase where you're, discovering things about each other.
The discovery phase, yeah. And they list some genuinely great qualities about this partner.
They do, like kind, generous, thoughtful.
Sweet, caring, all really positive stuff.
And then there's this detail which feels kind of pointedly included, loaded.
It's just sort of dropped in the list, yeah. Seems like DC wants to give the full context.
Right. But despite all these good points, here's the thing bothering DC. The partner's eating habits.
Okay.
And DC describes it pretty vividly, says she eats like a fraternity boy, and then goes straight to the electric chair afterwards.
Wow. Straight to the electric chair. That's quite an image.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So DC is basically asking the Luv Doc for some words of wisdom.
Right. That's the setup. And, you read that and you immediately think, okay, here comes the standard advice.
Exactly. Like, have you tried talking about it, or focus on the positives, maybe? Think about whether this is a real deal breaker for you.
Standard relationship counseling 101.
That's what I was bracing for. But nope, that is not where the Luv Doc goes.
Not even close. The Luv Doc actually starts by sidestepping that fraternity boy comparison altogether.
Yeah. How so?
Well, they admit their own memories of fraternity dinners are pretty hazy. Less about how people ate and more about just, shoveling food down fast before getting caught because they weren't actually supposed to be there yet.
Okay, interesting. So right off the bat, the Luv Doc takes us somewhere unexpected. Instead of advising DC about the partner, the Luv Doc does this complete U-turn and starts talking about their own history with food.
Yeah.
And eating speed.
And this is where this column just gets really, really interesting. The Luv Doc explains their background, right? Youngest of 4 brothers.
And all described as big feeders.
Yeah, big feeders. And their grandpa apparently had this pet theory about it.
Oh, yeah.
Something about the Irish potato famine and epigenetics. Basically saying it turned his grandsons into these voracious eating machines.
Wow. Epigenetics and the potato famine, that's specific.
Well, we should probably be clear. The Luv Doc presents this as the grandpa's kind of folk theory, right? Not like a peer-reviewed scientific explanation for why they ate so much.
Got it. But it definitely points to this family legacy of, let's say, serious eating.
A legacy indeed. But the Luv Doc says the really big influence was their father.
Okay.
And Oki, who, according to the stories he told, survived the Great Depression eating. Get this. Turnips and squirrel necks.
Turnips and squirrel necks. Just hearing that immediately gives you a sense of that survival mindset, right?
Totally. And this father was apparently very strict about food. You didn't just have to finish everything on your plate, the whole clean plate club thing.
Right.
But you also had to keep your nose over it at all times. That was the rule.
Nose over it. The Luv Doc even mentions there were strict penalties for breaking these rules. The Luv Doc jokes they'd probably earn a visit from CPS these days.
Yikes. So dinner wasn't exactly a relaxed, chatty affair. It was, as the Luv Doc puts it, all business.
All business feels like an understatement based on what comes next. The Luv Doc compares their focus and intensity at the dinner table as a kid to being on the playing field, or even in the octagon.
The octagon. That's intense.
Yeah. And this level of focused eating apparently frightened their grandpa.
The grandpa who had the famine theory.
Yeah, he was an only child, so maybe he just couldn't comprehend this kind of competitive dining experience among brothers.
Competitive seems right. And this rapaciousness, as the Luv Doc calls it, didn't stop in childhood, carried right on into the teenage years.
Right. There's that great story about protecting your food on the cafeteria tray.
Oh, yeah. They were apparently not bite sharers.
Definitely not. Trying to sneak food off the Luv Doc's tray was apparently a good way to get a fork in the back of your hand.
Ouch. Poor George. The Luv Doc actually named someone named George in that story. George learned the hard way, it seems.
He certainly did. So, okay, with this whole background of really intense fast eating, the Luv Doc then circles back to DC's original fraternity boy comparison.
And concludes what?
Based on their own lived experience, the Luv Doc felt that fraternity boys probably ate slower than they did growing up.
Holy crap. You're psychotically obsessed with the Luv Doc, but can't think of a flashy gauche way to share your obsession with the world? Stop thinking and make a beeline for the Luv Doc's home sweet home on the interwebs, thepleasurecraft.com, where you can find a veritable treasure trove of sick merch that will make even your coolest friends super gel. Honestly, I don't know why you didn't already think of this yourself, but you're welcome. Have fun on the Pleasure Craft. It was made just for you. Let me spell it out for you one more time. www.thepleasurecraft.com.
Okay, so the comparison didn't even land properly for the Luv Doc.
Not really, which leads the Luv Doc to this big realization they had later in life.
Which was his?
They didn't actually grasp how much faster they ate compared to, well, most people, until they started dating their wife.
The relationship test.
Exactly. The Luv Doc would apparently inhale their meal in like 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. And the wife?
They take 30 minutes.
5 versus 30, yeah, that's a noticeable difference.
Huge. And the Luv Doc's analogy for how that felt is just perfect. They said it was like eating a chili dog in front of the tiger cage at the zoo.
Whoa. Just that feeling of intense, urgent pressure to finish fast, even when there's no actual threat.
Precisely. So this whole incredibly detailed personal dive into the Luv Doc's own eating history, it leads to a really surprising conclusion when it comes to actually giving DC those words of wisdom she asked for.
Right. What do they end up saying?
Well, the Luv Doc basically says pretty much straight up that in this specific area, and they add maybe many, many others, they really can't offer traditional words of wisdom.
So no easy answers?
None. They do kind of toss out one initial suggestion, but then immediately pull it back.
What was that?
Something like, tell a partner to use your pie hole for its intended purpose, meaning, just eat, don't talk so much while eating.
Okay.
But the Luv Doc instantly says, yeah, that's probably not healthy advice.
Probably not. Definitely not standard couples counseling.
Not at all. So the alternative approach they eventually land on is much softer, more of a philosophical.
Like what?
Like recommending patience, empathy, perhaps even a sense of wonderment towards the partner's eating style.
Wonderment.
Okay.
That's different.
It is. And they also throw in this kind of funny, slightly absurd suggestion, too.
Go on.
Challenge the partner to a contest. See who can keep their mouth closed the longest while chewing.
You can almost feel the Luv Doc struggling to come up with any conventional advice here.
Totally. I mean, the Luv Doc does acknowledge the known health benefits of eating slowly, right? Chewing thoroughly, maybe meditating on gratitude for your food. The usual stuff.
Sure, the mindful eating approach.
But then kind of drawing back on their own history, maybe that grandpa's famine theory even, they offer this counterpoint.
Which is?
Sometimes, the Luv Doc says, hunger is so immense that you just have to get the food down. Like stat.
Yep.
That primal, urgent need is real too.
So acknowledging both sides, the mindful ideal and the raw necessity sometimes.
Exactly. The Luv Doc wraps up this whole reflection with a quote from the songwriter Townes Van Zandt.
Okay.
We all got holes to fill, and them holes are all that's real.
Wow. That's quite a profound thought to connect to something like how fast someone eats dinner.
Isn't it? So, okay, let's pull this back around, back to DC's original letter.
Right, the partner who eats like a fraternity boy.
How does the Luv Doc's really unexpected, super personal story about their own family, survival stuff, that raw feeling of hunger, how does that actually help DC? Or, shed light on our problem?
Well, I think that's the real insight here, isn't it? The Luv Doc's story basically suggests that something that seems like a minor surface-level annoyance.
Like how someone eats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It might actually be rooted in something much deeper, unconscious personal history, family dynamics, maybe even those old survival instincts kicking in.
It totally shifts the perspective. Instead of just judging the partner's habits as bad manners, the Luv Doc's story kind of invites DC and us, really, to consider that maybe pain. Maybe there's a reason behind it, a reason that goes way beyond just being messy or eating like a fraternity boy.
Right. It moves you from a place of judgment towards curiosity, maybe, towards that empathy the Luv Doc mentioned.
Yeah. So the real question for DC, and maybe for you listening when you encounter things that bug you about other people,
is what?
Is the issue really about needing to change the other person's behavior, or is it maybe more about trying to understand the possible hidden story behind it?
And perhaps changing your own perspective or your expectations or just your tolerance level for these kinds of differences.
Exactly. It's quite a journey. We started with this, fairly common dating complaint about table manners.
Yeah.
And it ended up on this wild ride through the Luv Doc's personal history, survival instincts, family legacies, epigenetics theories.
And even a bit of Townes Van Zandt poetry about hunger and the human condition.
Yeah. What this Luv Doc's response really highlights, I think, is that sometimes the most valuable answer you can get, it isn't a simple fix-it suggestion.
Right.
It's maybe a complex personal story that kind of reveals the hidden depths behind what seems like a superficial issue. It's more about understanding than just solving.
It really drives home the idea that even something as basic, as fundamental as how we eat, how we approach food, it can carry so much deep personal meaning and history. Stuff we might not even fully get about ourselves.
Precisely. And thinking about the Luv Doc's whole reflection there on hunger and history and those holes to fill, here's maybe a final thought for you to chew on.
What does the way someone eats? What does it truly communicate, if anything, about who they are deep down, or about the unique experiences that shape them into the person and the eater they are today?
To read the column that spawned this podcast, go to austinchronicle.com/columns/the Luv Doc. There are probably worse things to do with your time, right?